Hello and welcome to another edition of Capital Calculus. I am your host Anil Padmanabhan. I am at IIT Madras, more specifically at the IIT Research Park, which is located in the campus but on the outskirts. It is also home to some of the hottest deep tech startups, including Ather Energy, which has just closed its IPO. In fact, IIT Madras just put out an update in which they revealed that the incubation cell had managed to incubate 104 deep tech startups, reinforcing their claim to emerge as a deep tech hub in the country. The obvious question is this for real? More importantly, what is it that is making IIT Madras tick? And can this learning be replicated across other academic institutions in India? To answer this and more, we have with us Dr. Tamaswati Ghosh. She is the CEO of the IIT Madras Incubation Cell. Thank you, Tamaswati, for taking time to speak to us.
My pleasure.
I wanted to begin with Ather Energy, which has just concluded its IPO. It was a startup that originated in the IIT campus. How does it feel to having shepherded a startup from your campus to now a company and an IPO? Is it the new poster child of your incubation cell?
So, Ather Energy is, of course, it's in the news right now. It's a landmark kind of a story for the deep tech ecosystem of India, particularly when we are talking about, government, universities, all working together to create that whole entrepreneurial culture among young people. We are talking about how universities should churn out, create technologies which can be scaled and bring India to the global platform and all that. But for when we talk about Ather, it is a lot more than just a startup or incubated startup for us, which has gone IPO. We started our IIT Madras Incubation Cell, which is the nodal incubator of IIT Madras. And primarily, this is the place where we are onboarding, bringing in new startups, nurturing them, getting them, to going from prototype development to a minimal viable product, which can tomorrow be taken to market and scale. This is our day-to-day job, right? So we started our journey some 12 years back along with Ather Energy. So Ather was one of our first incubated startup. So this is something I have also written about recently on my blog, that this is a lot more than just a startup doing exceptionally well. It's a real emotion for us, Anyone who has been associated with the founding days and the growth story of IIT Madras Incubation Cell itself, as well as Ather Energy, will know what I'm talking about. They started, like you rightly said, they started their journey much before the incubator or Ather itself, the two founders, Tarun and Swapnil, students of IIT Madras. They were part of the Center for Innovation, which is a student innovation hub. In a simplified manner, the Maker Lab of IIT Madras. So they were founders of this very famous, one of the famous, student teams in CFI, Raftar, so racing cars. So Tarun and Swapnil were sort of leading that. From that came the idea of Ather. They were the first during those times, I think 10 years back, EV, that too in the two-wheeler space. They started their journey here at the IIT Madras Incubation Cell, which is located in the Research Park, one of our first cohorts. one of the first startups that got incubated, and with them we experimented many things. With them we created this whole incubation ecosystem, which has grown exponentially over the last 12 years. Today it is home to close to 460 deep tech startups. 50%, of course, or I would say 40% comes from the IIT-Madras ecosystem, but 60% of our startups come from all over India. It took us 12 years. We had a lot of learnings as to what it takes to, support a deep tech to become a commercially successful venture and then scale. And Ather, as well as there are a few other companies who were sort of our
Prototypes, as it were.
yes, yes, yes. And we built around it, bringing the right mentors, bringing business mentors, that too. How should IIT Madras as an institute come together to bring in the right resources, infrastructure support for these kind of companies, bringing the right kind of investors, very important. Because the nature of these companies as an Ather, very capital intensive, long gestation, right kind of investment and access to capital is very important. It was much more challenging in those years, 10 years back, right? There are a lot more VC, micro VC, in the country now, a lot of HNIs that are coming in and corporates coming in, but in those days things were very, very challenging, right? So we put all that together, created a physical, infrastructure also. That's also important because you want startups to come and at least in their early days, be physically here, because access to the, the R&D resources of IIT Madras, the peer-to-peer network is very important, and a place where you can meet all kind of people that have and keep coming to the research park, to the incubator, from industry to investors and all that. So over the years, we have built all this for companies like Ather, and as they evolved in their journey, they brought back challenges for us because they needed help, right? Having the right investor at the right stage of their growth, having the right R&D partners also. Ather worked very closely with quite a few professors and labs within IIT Madras during their initial days, right? We learned how a startup can work with an academic institution. It's not so straightforward as it seems, right, to replicate across other institutions in the country. The faculty and researchers also need to tune themselves, to be sort of have support or solutions that can be taken up by the market, right? So a lot of those things we created thanks to all the learning from the successes and failures of companies like Ather. So you asked the question about if they are a poster boy. Of course they are, because they kind of signify the ups and the positives of the ecosystem. It is a wonderful, wonderful, journey and a story, a narrative about what the youth of India can do if they're determined enough. These are the two boys who were just head on, went with it, with a lot of ups and downs that they've seen. What an academic institution can do for deep tech innovation ecosystem. What are the do's and don'ts kind of for an academic institution? What an incubator, which are associated with an academic institution, must do to help a deep tech R&D, a deep tech company which is at an R&D stage and then get it into a commercial venture. What are the things, what are the kind of support that we need to build? And who are the sort of people you need to engage within an ecosystem? You cannot grow in silo, you cannot scale in silo. So the access to the right industry partners, role of an industry in a deep tech startups journey, that of investors, all of that is something we have learned. And one final thing I wanted to add was they have been inspirational to the students of IIT Madras. They allowed for a generation, a new generation of people who said, we want to build these moonshot, as we call it, moonshot ventures, right? Predecessor to Athers were the Medibuddies, to the Agnikul, Planets, the list just goes on, right? Who said we will do something impossible and change the market, disrupt the industry, right? So they are, in a sense, the biggest brand ambassador for IITM Incubation Cell.
Fascinating. So one big takeaway is that what you dwelled on is that you created a symbiosis between academics, startup founders, entrepreneurs, and of course industry.
Yes.
So this is something very new to the idea of India. This is way of life in Stanford, Harvard, but in India is something new. So what has changed to enable this?
It's very true. And I would say IIT Madras led the way. You will find many other IITs now kind of emulating that model. For academic institutions to become great and really impact the society, there needs to be things happening beyond just teaching in classrooms, right? So the whole idea of R&D came into picture, I think, a couple of decades back, led by the older IITs, where innovation solutions were kind of getting translated to industry, right? But that was not enough, So then, in the early 2000, particularly in IIT Madras, where it was in the early days of academia, industry collaborating, certain new technologies being transferred to particularly the Indian, industries, and innovation came into play, right? A lot of these solutions didn't see its final kind of fruition, right? Because it just, the nature of industry may not have been taken forward and all that. So there were a few individuals at that time, particularly professors and faculty members in the early 2000s, who realized that the way to go forward is, why don't we create ventures of our own and all that, right? But as full-time academics, it's impossible for you to do this. Plus, you don't know how to go about, and the whole,
The
business of it, and the work that you need to put in, right? And that's where the students came into the picture. These were people who were, and still continue to be, extremely optimistic. They want to change the world, unlike people in their 50s and 60s, where we start with this whole thing about, cannot be done, this is difficult. Yeah, all that comes in, right? Young people are not like that, right? So I would say it sort of, through experiments, through the sheer, aspiration to get those solutions out to its end users, make that difference, people came together, right? As a result of some of the early, initiatives, or the early successes that we saw, and also I would say another big element was our alumni, the IIT alumni diaspora itself. In those days, a lot of them left India, went to the US, and ended up establishing, becoming part of large corporates, and also many of them became entrepreneurs. So when they came back to India for their usual visits and all that, it became very inspirational for young people as well, within IIT Madras, that I can do something like this. I need not go to, after my studies, need not go to for a job and all that, right? So a lot of these elements started happening within IIT Madras. And what IIT Madras Incubation Cell, when we started 12 years back in 2010, our first job, and what was my first job, was to bring all of these things together. Bring faculty, who are the ones with the brain and the expertise. Bring the students who will be your entrepreneurs tomorrow, the young people, aspirational. bring the alumni because they sort of bring the experience of industry of they were serial entrepreneurs, some of them were investors. Now of course that group has gone beyond the IIT alumni, right? And then at a later stage bring in the capital, bring in government and all of that. So one of the things we did was bring all these stakeholders together, because without any one of them being left out, you will not have the the right kind of support that is required, particularly for deep tech companies, because they tend to be B2B. They have to work with industry early on for inputs to strategic partnerships to first customers and even tomorrow investment. And so these are the things we try to do within IIT Madras very early on and took the lead.
Actually, you're so right. In the 1980s, Maruti car taught us how to drive.
Yes.
And now we see the entrepreneurial spirit coming up and this daring of youth.
Yes.
This week, a 14-year-old boy, Vaibhav, smacked the 100 in the T20.
IPL, yes, yes.
And the whole world is swooning and taken aback. So there is a dare in the youth, which
Absolutely.
we have not seen, and
Yes.
it's unprecedented. So what you're saying is there's a happy confluence of a bunch of things: the dare of the youth, the wisdom of the academics who are professors,
Yes.
and then of course the industry.
Backing of the industry
Yes.
and of course the investors. That is also important.
So it's
Capital.
a happy confluence of all of them.
Yes, we have all the right ingredients.
But you clearly have a template in place, because just last week or a fortnight ago you announced that last year you cracked 100 deep tech startups, 104 to be precise. So there is obviously a template in place now. I mean, all of you got a model, right?
So, of course, it's a milestone. I did mention today our total portfolio size is close to about 460 startups. This is what startups that have been incubated, formally associated with the IITM incubator in the last 11, 12 years, right? Previously, in the previous years, we used to incubate about 50 to 80 odd new startups every year. Of course, last year, our director, Professor Kamakoti, just threw a challenge. It all started with the whole patent a day, which he had thrown a challenge to the IP ecosystem within IIT, that all this R&D, where is it going? We should create patents, and tomorrow that should be licensed, and products, solutions should come out. So upon achieving that and surpassing that patent a day, he had just said, why not? Why can't we create more startups out of the IIT-Madras ecosystem, and also invite more startups from the rest of the country, right? So it was just a number thrown. We don't go after these kind of numbers. Here it's always about getting the right companies, and by right I mean people who we can really provide that value addition, help them to succeed and all that. But I think the 100, a lot of factors worked. The fact that, the 100 new startups that we incubated, it was the first in a single financial year. We onboarded that many number of startups, and 100 is always a nice number, right? It's just a number. Tomorrow we'll say 200 or something as a target, right? Couple of things that I feel is extremely positive. One are the 100 startups, 50% of these startups came from the IIT Madras ecosystem. So students, faculty, and some of our recent graduates, alumni. That kind of signifies the kind of churning that's happening within the campus. And we are talking about, these are very interesting deep tech quality companies, potential of commercial, success, growth, which is a very, very positive thing. And it also kind of validates the kind of organization structures that have been created over the last couple of years within the campus, to help students to better formulate their ideas, think about entrepreneurship really seriously. Faculty members And by the way, IIT Madras has one of the largest number of professors who are entrepreneurs also in the country.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to come to that.
Yes.
This of these 104, 1 in 2 have professors as
Yeah, advisors of founders, all that. So it actually was a great validation for IIT Madras and its innovation and pre-incubation ecosystem, because that was one of the strongest pipeline. It was also a validation of the confidence that deep tech entrepreneurs have in the ecosystem, because rest of the 50% came from outside IIT, so no connection to IIT itself, right? So it was a lot of ticks in that way. Now we can't get all comfortable with that, because hundreds new startups have come into this already fairly large ecosystem. um, right now it's a big challenge for the incubator, our mentors, and the larger IIT ecosystem. How do we support them in the right way? Much better than what we have done with our startups. Because 100 this year means another set of, that will keep coming. So we cannot just look at numbers in terms of inflow. Our focus still remains, how do we best support our startups, help them to scale, become commercially successful. So which means we need to expand all our other support systems also.
So, Tamaswati, I have a follow-up question that, yes, so far from whatever we discussed, you created a great environment to create startups, deep tech startups, and that is now beginning to get an exponential arc to it.
Yes.
But there's another side,
Yes.
Ather and several other startups which have done very well. This is a challenge of success. Again, I want to go back to this young boy who's at 14 years, broken world records, and the whole world is putting pressure on him now.
Yeah.
So, dealing with success,
Yes.
do you also, as an incubation cell, handhold them to, manage their success?
So large majority of our startups here have founders that are in their early 20s, right? Of course, there are some professionals who will, from years of work experience, come and create companies in their 30s, 40s, 50s also, but the larger population is under 30. With limited experience about life as whole. They've not worked a lot, very optimistic, hardworking, right? So, of course, these are the people, you need these kind of people to create startups. The kind of hard work and the optimism and just the attitude of it, that everything can be done. It's possible, right? You need that kind of positivity and all that. But like you rightly said, one of the key ingredients of the successes that you see, and even the failures, because failures are also, we realize what the failures were for, right? When companies shut down and all that. One of the key things that we do here, and that has worked beautifully, are having mentors. So by mentors, I mean these are experienced people in various ways, in all walks of life, whether experience in the right industry, experience in creating companies, or just sheer experience of life, right? These are the people who get associated from day one with these startups. So primarily, all these founders, particularly the ones who have first-time entrepreneurs in their 20s, need to have people they can talk to, a sounding board, a journey mentor, and then more dedicated, relevant to those industries. So this is something that works beautifully in IIT Madras ecosystem. We are very fortunate to have incredible people from the industry, from the startup ecosystem, different age groups. Large number of our alumni, like I said, have been involved from the very early days of Incubation Cell, and many of our professors also. That is also important, because you're talking about students that are taking up entrepreneurship as a career option, right? So because we have large number of professors who are also entrepreneurially inclined, if not they have had their startups, also understand the challenges, right? So you, at every step, whether you're building a technology for a commercial use, or you've already started a venture, we are looking at strategies, on how to build your team, how to take your product, or how to talk to a customer, how to raise investment, in fact. So we've tried to bring in people from all these walks of life, all these industries, people that they can go and talk to for all kind of advice. Some are purely pro bono. Majority of them are pro bono here. There is no compensation per se that we provide. People just do it for the joy and the whole journey that they become part of, right? If you ask Ather founders, they'll say our credit goes to all these mentors along the years, right? So this way, this ecosystem, I would say, has taken a lead in the country, if not at global stage. It's just the sheer community of people that we can kind of leverage. And these are not just individuals, but people who come with huge amount of experience and wisdom. And these young entrepreneurs with all their zeal and drive have somebody to go to for
In a situation.
the reality check, and also somebody to kind of bounce your ideas with. Some people then tomorrow become investors in their company, so larger commitment in the company. That's how we grow. So every startup that gets incubated here, our first thing that we do is get them a mentor. They have to be connected to a journey mentor, as we call it. And then if you are in the need of technology support, we get a faculty to become an advisor. If not, they get more deeply involved. So this is how we have managed. And it works beautifully also when people get stuck in difficult times. Founders get into a fight, their strategy didn't work, their product nobody wants to buy. Imagine those situations. Anywhere else they would have shut shop long back. Here it doesn't happen that easily because there are people you can talk to, people who are there to help you.
So that's a good note to sign off, as note of reassurance that incubation cell is handholding them not only in growing them, seeding them, growing them, but handholding them in case of a failure, but more importantly, also in handling the success.
Yes.
Thank you so much
for
this conversation.
Thank you. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to StratNewsGlobal.Tech on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any updates. And please, to share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions with us, I'm available on Twitter at Capital Calculus. I'll be back next week with another episode. Till then, stay safe.